Now, if you click this video, you're probably aware that back in late June, mid-July, I believe it was, Dr. Stephen Greer, together with Congressman Eric Burlison, went down to Mexico. They shook some hands with people like Jaime Maussan, and they inspected and examined the Buga Sphere. Now, on that occasion, I believe Dr. Stephen Greer and his team obtained a small amount of carbon-based polymer that back then they said they want to get carbon tested and isotope tested and find out how old it is to prove to us that the Buga Sphere is an ancient artifact. Well, I was already making fun of it, to be honest, in some of my live streams, saying, where are the results? It's a while now. We should have the results. I stand corrected. Ladies and gentlemen, the results are in. The Buga Sphere is ancient. Dr. Stephen Greer has confirmed it. Okay, not too much. We don't want to celebrate too early. This comes from posts that Dr. Stephen Greer posted himself, and I'm going to share them with you guys. I'm going to analyze them and obviously highlight a few questions, because guess what? It's not as watertight as it sounds. Now, here is a newsletter from Dr. Stephen Greer that he's been sending around, I think just yesterday. It's hot off the press, saying astounding report about the resin in the Buga Sphere. So he says in the Buga Sphere. Did they get it from inside? Anyway, the University of Georgia, Center for Applied Isotope Studies, dated the resin at about 12,560 years old. So does that mean the Buga Sphere is 12,560 years old? Stay tuned for more information from Dr. Greer. We got these results on September 19th, and he posts the actual letter that he received from the University of Georgia underneath, showing us the results, this radiocarbon analysis report. Let's look at that in a bit more depth before we move forward. This is the letter. Now, the first thing I notice is literally the first line up here in the address. They made a spelling mistake, okay? It doesn't say serious technology advanced research. It says technology. Now, I understand this is not proof. This doesn't prove anything. It just proves that the person who wrote this might be dyslexic or missed that mistake. Who knows, okay? But this is not good. This doesn't look good for a letter that proves results of a lab test that you probably paid a fairly significant amount of money for. There shouldn't be any spelling mistakes. It's embarrassing. But let's move on. Then down here, they break down the method. And honestly, I try to read it. I'm not someone who works in a lab. I have no idea what most of this stuff means. But they come to the conclusion up here saying that the carbon-14 age years, that the conclusion they came to, is 12,560 years old. Now the question is, what did they test? As I said, it was previously referred to as a carbon-based polymer. However, there is one little detail in this lab report that often goes unnoticed, I think. And that is that up here in the headline, it says, enclosed, please find the results of the carbon analysis for the foraminifer samples received on September 12th. First of all, didn't we collect them allegedly like back in June, July? Why are we handing them over on September 12th? A different question. But over here, they talk about foraminifer, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but what foraminifer is basically seashell biomass. You can Google the word yourself. There's a lengthy article on Wikipedia about it, breaking exactly down what foraminifers are. But it seems like before they even get to the analysis of the object, this laboratory classifies the material they received as seashell biomass. And it makes somewhat sense. If they receive seashell biomass, like some kind of small crab material, seashell material, sure, it can be 12,000 years old. That's probably not even that unusual for this kind of material. But it seems like there are three core options here at the moment on the table. The first one is, it is actually some kind of seashell biomass. Then the dating is valid, or it could be valid, but it says nothing about the sphere's inner workings being ancient. Okay, so yes, it might be something that was on the outside of the sphere, wherever they got it from. It was identified, if I read this correctly, as ancient seashells, but it's not the material that the sphere really is made of. I mean, why didn't they take metal ball shavings? Oh, is that a word? The other option is, if it is bakelite epoxy or something like that, some kind of glue material, then the dating is invalid. Because carbon dating simply wouldn't work with a material like that. And the third option is that it's something completely different, and then we need a new investigation. Now, you may notice that none of these options are that it's alien, but that doesn't stop people on Twitter to running with this. Okay, and going crazy with the little bit that they have. Like, for example, Skywatcher Signal here says, the Buga Sphere resin sample just got dated 12,560 years old. This isn't a rumor. It's straight from a radiocarbon lab, and it's dated September 19th. And then there's a long thread that he goes into saying, a resin sample directly pulled from the Buga Sphere was tested by serious it's technology. He's misspelled the word there. The result shows dated 12,000. That's roughly 10,600 BC. Give or take a few. Imagine that. And then he gives us examples. He's like, look, the Great Pyramids, 4,500 years old. Göbekli Tepe. 11,500. This is older than Göbekli Tepe. Oh my God, it is potentially the most meaningful and ancient artifact that we hold and own as humanity. He goes further. He says the dating falls squarely into the Younger Dryas period, a period of massive climate upheaval, glaciers melting, megafauna dying, and humans just beginning to form the first sacred sites. And the Buga Sphere was already there, right? The Buga Sphere was already floating around at that time, 12,500 years ago. Like, how can he write this, right? And there's more. I'll post the whole thread down in the description. But how can this guy write this and not, as he's writing it, be like, none of this makes sense. If you just look at the craftsmanship in some of these details, and if you look at how closely it resembles, for example, rocket fuel tanks, we looked at it before, how closely the inner workings, when x-rayed of the sphere, resemble bowling balls and how they look on the inside. I broke this all down a million times, don't need to say it again. But to say, yeah, this is 12,500 years old, so the Buga Sphere has been floating around 10,500 years BC or whatever. Anyway, let's keep it slightly more reasonable than that guy. And here is a man called Missile Man. Minute of Zombie is the name of this user on Twitter. And he says, I was done commenting until we had new data. Speaking of the Buga Sphere, we have new data from Greer and others from material collected by Greer in his visit. It does not look encouraging, right? So he's breaking this down in a bit more detail. I think he knows more what's going on. So I'll read it to you guys. What is cited here from UNAM, which is like the Universidad Mexico, doesn't help the UGA, which is the University of Georgia. It harms it. It says the polymer glue used in the pins is bakelite epoxy, which is modern and is carbon dead, right? So you can't carbon date it because it doesn't exchange carbon with the biosphere. I'm reading this. I don't know what that means. Now, what this is referring to is actually a now deleted post. It is now unavailable. I wonder why. But this guy has screenshotted it and he shares the post down here. Now, the post itself is in Spanish, but down here, it seems like they did a bunch of testing and come to the conclusion that it is resina phenolica, which is a form of formaldehyde resin. And therefore, I think Missile Man sees this contradiction here, right? Between the claim that Dr. Stephen Greer made, describing it as a carbon-based polymer. Now it turns out that the material they tested is like seashell biomass, but the University of Mexico, basically, if I understand this correctly, came to the conclusion that it is some kind of resin, some kind of glue, glorified glue. So there is some confusion going on, but let's keep reading. So he says the polymer glue in these pins is bakelite epoxy, which is modern and carbon dead, which means A, bakelite epoxy can't be carbon dated anyway. It will show roughly 100 to 200. So again, it doesn't work with carbon dating. The letter you're showing from UGA isn't bakelite epoxy. The letter says the sample you gave them is foraminifer, which is seashell biomass, not a bakelite adhesive polymer resin. Because if you look at the actual document, they do refer to it as resin here, material resin, the resin sample. Down here it's mentioned as well. So they describe it as a resin as well, but as far as I'm aware, they called it a carbon-based polymer. And polymer can occur in nature, right? Polymer does not describe a material that can only be created artificially. So I'm a little bit confused here. There's a lot going on, and it's not as simple as here's this one material and now it's 12,000 years old. But let's keep going. Maybe we can make sense of it as we go through it. Now, it says here, the PMC is also consistent with seashell biomass, not polymer resin. PMC being that number on the right-hand side here, 20.94. I guess just from that number code, you can roughly get an idea what kind of material it is. And this guy concludes that that PMC they're showing here is consistent with seashell biomass. The age is consistent with seashell biomass, not bakelite epoxy, which was invented 1907. So here are a few possibilities. Possibility one, again, this is Missile Man on Twitter saying this, okay? He says, option one, you faked the report with an old report. UJ has not using this logo since 2016. Ooh, I'm not even aware of this, which was originally for a sample of foraminifer. Number two, option two, you gave them a sample of this seashell biomass instead of the resin, so it would return at least a real carbon date, and then edited the table to say it's resin. Okay, so that's a possibility, right? Because the laboratory referring to it as resin, I mean, I'm not an expert in materials and stuff, but that doesn't make sense to me. If you receive seashell biomass, you wouldn't call it a resin. And if you receive a resin, you wouldn't call it foraminifer. So there is somewhat of an inconsistency here in this document. However, with these allegations that this person is now putting forward, saying that maybe this document has been tampered with, I would imagine that the University of Georgia will be on this within a heartbeat. If you publish a document that allegedly comes from their laboratories and that is fake, that is tweaked, dude, they're going to be exposing that left and right. I don't think you get far with that. If that's your idea that you Photoshop the document and then claim it to be real, I don't think that would go very far. But I agree with this person. It is very suspicious and non-conclusive how these things come together. Option 3. The lab ran the test on the resin, but coincidentally messed up their letter template by saying foraminifer, and inexplicably used a letterhead they hadn't used in 10 years. And you did give them a sample of the Buga Sphere, and it was not bakelite, but some other resin that Dr. Figueroa missed, which is organic and is genuinely 12,500 years old. Okay, so it feels like that third option is like we're really trying to make it work. Option 3 is the only one which no one is lying, and it requires a few extraordinary coincidences to be true. We're going to find out the truth here soon enough. And the original tweet this was referring to was deleted, but I believe this is the original tweet that he was tweet quoting. That's now deleted in the meantime. So you can see people who actually know about this stuff are very skeptical, and they're just raising all kinds of question marks. It's not as simple as the results are back. It's 2,500 years, guys. Unbelievable. And everyone taps their own back. So I am somewhat curious to see where Dr. Stephen Greer is going to go with this. He announces here in this newsletter that there will be more information coming soon. I read somewhere that it will be revealed at some of his events. He said that in another message, I think on Twitter somewhere. So it might be that we won't hear too much about this for a long time, except if you go and pay for a ticket to go to one of Dr. Stephen Greer's events. And then you'll get the insight, the exclusive inside scoop about the Buga Sphere. But looking at this in a bit more depth, I mean, it's not looking great. Mick West is getting involved here as well, and he says this would be a bit more convincing if they would spell technology right. And they didn't just cut and paste over a result letter for analysis of foraminifer shells. Okay, and funny enough, what's interesting is Mick West got his hands on a less redacted version of this document, because down here it's signed by the senior research scientist, and in the version that Greer shared, that is all redacted. So I don't know what's going on here, how Mick West got his hands on this other document, or whether what he claims is actually that this is a pre-existing document and it's just been copy and pasted and possibly manipulated to fit this narrative. Again, I don't know this. This looks the same, September 19th. It looks literally like a picture of that exact document. So I'm not implying that Mick West is saying that the whole document was faked, but I think Misselman is making a good point. Either Greer faked it with an old logo, or he did give them some seashell biomass and then potentially later tweaked and edited the word resin in there, mainly to get a real carbon date, or the lab messed something up and you know, it's all a mess on their end, which to be honest is less likely. Then again, they wrote the word technology wrong, seemingly. I don't know what's going on here, okay? It is a big mess. It seems like Dr. Stephen Greer really wanted us all to believe and swallow up that this sphere is now 12,500 years, whatever it is, old. I'm not buying it. I don't know what exactly is going on here, but maybe you have a theory, okay? Leave your thoughts to this whole story down in the comment section below. I'm curious to hear it. What the hell is going on here, right? Is this a reliable document? Did one of these guys fake it? Did the lab mess up? What are your thoughts? Leave them down in the comment section below. If you made it to this point, I congratulate you and appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Smash the like button. It helps the channel out. Also subscribe, join our Discord. The links to all these good things are down in the description. I'd hope to meet you over in our Discord community. It's a fun community. Loads of people hanging out there, discussing all kinds of subjects. Thanks so much. Have a great day. I see you in the next one. And I'm out. Bye.